Hi, I'm Nicholas Lodge and welcome to my Flower Pro video on poppies. This is my new Flower Pro poppy mold. As you can see, an incredible mold just like all of the other Flower Pro ones. And on here there obviously are multiple elements we use to create the poppy bud, the poppy seed head, and also finishing up with the poppy leaf. On the mold, there are, first of all, I'm going to start off by showing you the flower center. This would be like the center of the poppy. So as you can see here, there is a larger and then also a smaller poppy center. Now these could also be used for little buttons and all sorts of other little elements on cake as well, and also for other flower centers also. So this is the poppy centers here. Once I've shown you that, I'm going to move on to the stamens, which are going to be made from thread, and then I'm going to go on to show you then how to make the buds and the petals. So this is the bud, so there's two sizes of buds, and you'll see how I use those both for the closed and open buds. And then we move on to the petals. There are three sizes of petals. This is designed to make three different sizes of poppies, and some varieties of poppies have four same petals of the same size, like California poppies have four small petals, or for example field poppies and some of the other types of varieties of poppies sometimes have four larger petals or four medium petals, but also some varieties of poppy have, like for example, two of this size and two of this size. So this is really giving you a mold that you can use in lots of different ways for different varieties. And then this is the poppy seed head. So this makes the beautiful seed head that we get when the poppies obviously die off. The seed head becomes swollen, becomes larger. We use these in a green color, and often you see these in autumn or dried flower arrangements in autumn and fall, where it becomes like almost a creamy color. And I'm going to show you both of those. And then finally we have the poppy leaves, and these are the sort of small leaves you'd have for like the Californian variety, and then these are larger poppy leaves which we use for like English field poppies, wild poppies, Icelandic poppy, things like that. So a really wonderful mold, and you'll see how that's all going to work in this video. So let's get started. So I'm going to first of all show you how we make the center of the poppy. Now I said there's the two sizes. All right, so first of all I'm going to start off by taking some wire. This is 22 gauge wire. Okay, so this is a 22 gauge wire here, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a 22 gauge wire like this, and I'm going to use some half-width floral tape. So just like on a lot of my other videos, I either cut this with a tape cutter, all right, by rotating that around inside, or with a pair of scissors. So you're going to cut the tape, and I'm using a light green tape. You could use like a moss green, but typically for most varieties of poppy, I'm going to use a light green. And just like I've shown many times on my Flower Pro videos, we're going to make a floral tape bud. Now this is also a full-length wire, because typically when you use poppies, a lot of the times you're going to make them with long stems, like when we often arrange fresh poppies in a vase or a container, you're going to keep them long stem. But of course you could totally cut these down if you're doing a smaller arrangement. So we're going to take the floral tape here, and I'm going to go around 5 times on the end of the wire. I'm then going to hook it, and then I'm going to go another 5 times. So just take your tape, all right, just get started. So you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to create a floral tape bud. I'm going to take a pair of pliers, because obviously it's a fairly strong wire. I'm just going to hook this over. So you see, when we hook this over, you're actually going to hook this on the end of the wire like this, so it's going to be the same length as the wire. And then we're going to go 5 more times on top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then literally I'm going to continue down about 5 millimeters, about a quarter of an inch, which is the thickness of the tape. So literally I'm just going to come down just a little tiny bit and break. So you see it's the thickness of the tape. I'm just going to break that off. Okay. So that would be how you would do. I'm going to show you the large one. Now when we do the small one, all right, with the small poppy, you would use, this is a 24 gauge wire, so a little bit thinner wire. Okay. So for the small one, you're just going to go around 1, 2, 3. This is actually a softer wire, so often I would just use my fingers to bend that over, and then 1, 2, 3, and again just down. All right, so the big one is, as I said, this is on a 22 gauge wire, this is on a 24 gauge wire. 5 times hook times 5, 3 times hook times 3. Okay, so now we're going to take the paste. So we're going to use a green paste. Now I'm using here just a green flower modeling paste. Of course you could also make white, could use white paste, homemade paste, and then of course color it with like a moss green color or a little bit of leaf and brown. You want sort of a nice natural green color. And we're going to measure off the paste. So first of all, for the large one, we're going to measure off a number 6 size ball of paste. So using your size guide, which is part of your, obviously in the books, in the Flower Pro books, volume 1 and 2, you get a size guide in the back of this. And this is really the easiest way to explain about sizes, all right? So we're going to take a piece of paste, and when you measure this on the size guide, remember you're going to measure, so it's about approximately one third below, 2/3 above, okay? So just going to take your little ball of paste here. And of course, if you're making, say, 3 poppies, there was going to, you just use that to do this. So this is going to be your, so about 1/3 below the paste and about 2/3 above the top. Now, we're going to take a little tiny bit of vegetable shortening here. It's a little tiny bit of vegetable fat. I'm just going to work this into the paste, okay? And just going to roll this into a little ball, okay? You can use a little bit of corn flour if you need to, because you don't want this to be sticky. And then going to take, I'm going to use a little bit of edible glue or some egg white onto here. So we're going to just brush a little bit of glue or egg white onto your floral tape bud. And you're going to then insert this into the mold, into the paste. Just going to mold this around. So it's very similar to on my ultimate sunflower and daisy, like how I made the daisy buds. Okay, so you see how you're going to get this like balloon shape, okay? Now the reason why I didn't tape down too far is when I do the next step, where I'm going to do the thread and push this through almost like a bird's nest, if you have floral tape on your wire, it's going to make it difficult to push it through. So that's why you only tape down a little tiny bit. So really, as I said, the end of it is covering over where the end of the wire is. So now we're going to take your center, okay? And we're going to take your center and you're just going to push that into the middle. Now, because it's a long wire, you want to just sort of hold this, all right? So you're just going to hold it with one hand, and then with your other hand, you're just molding this around. So you see how you're just pinching it around, so you create a little bit of, almost like the top of a cupcake and or a muffin, and then you're going to get that shape there like that. So you see from the side, where I take it out of the mold, you see it's like a little cupcake or muffin. So then when you pop that out of the mold, you see how you're going to get this beautiful top piece to this. And as I explained, you could use this for an embellishment in fantasy flowers. And then what I'm going to do here is just using my companion tool, I would just actually just press this between each of the little scallops, so you'll actually get rid of that, almost that rim around the edge. So then just go around like this. So you're just going to create that nice natural looking top to the seed head, all right? And so that's going to be your top of your piece there, like that, okay? So then when you do when we do the small one, we're going to do exactly the same. Remember, this is the 3 times hook times 3. And then this one is going to actually be a number 5 size. So this one has been measured on the size guide, number 5. Okay, and then we're going to take that, again, just work a little bit of vegetable shortening into that. A little bit of, as I said, some egg white or glue onto here. Okay. And then we're just going to pop that into the center part and then mold this around. Okay, and then if your piece feels a bit sticky, just put a little bit of corn flour, cornstarch onto the end, because this will be dusted later anyway. And again, you're just going to work this down just a little bit. Now, if your floral tape is a little bit long, you can just sort of slide it up a little bit, because as I said, your floral tape wants to come right at the bottom of that little seed part there, see? And then you're going to take this. Now this is going to go into the smaller one. So again, just hold this with one hand. And then with your other hand, just going to press this in to the mold like this. Okay. So that shows you the large and the small. Okay. Again, you're just going to take that. And also again, you're just going to use your little companion tool. Now remember, companion tool is obviously a free gift with the Ultimate Filler Flowers. Just going to go just around the edge here, so you're just going to get rid of that sort of severe edge of this piece here. Now these would need to dry for about 2 hours, all right? And of course, while those are drying, you can also be making the buds, the half buds, you could be making the seed head, you could be making the petals, so it's not like you now have to stop work and wait 2 hours, but you can of course multitask and do leaves or whatever you want to do while those are drying, but we're going to let those dry for about 2 hours. So now we're going to move on to the thread stamens. Now this is just black sew-in thread. Okay, you can use a polyester or a cotton thread. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take 3 fingers, all right, and I'm just going to sort of just start off going around 3 fingers and then just open my fingers up once I've got a little bit further along. Just open them up, and then you're going to go around here 80 times, okay? All right, so you're going to go 80 times around with your fingers like that, okay? So then you're just going to take your pair of scissors, just cut that. Now, this will actually be enough to make 2 centers, all right? Now, depending on how small your fingers are, all right, I've got fairly average length fingers, but just if you open up your fingers a little bit, that should give you enough to 2 centers. If you've obviously got smaller fingers, you could actually go around 4 fingers, all right? You'll see how this works in a second. So we're going to take now some 30 gauge wire. This is just some 30 gauge green wire. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take the loop here. I'm going to fold it. Okay, so I'm just going to fold it at one end. I'm going to take my piece of wire. My wire is going to sort of be like half to the left and half to my right. And I'm going to hold the end part where it's folded. So this piece of wire will actually just be twisted around. So you see I'm going to twist this around quite tightly. So it's going to go around the end there. So you see the wire comes up and it's twisted around, all right? I'm going to show you this again on the other end here. Now just pull your stamen, your stamens, your thread taut, all right? So if you do have any little slight imperfections, that will straighten them out. So again, you're going to just hold that folded end. So you see half the wire is over my fingers here, and it's going to go around here. It's going to go around nice and tightly, one complete revolution there, like that, okay? Now what I then do, so this gives you 2, obviously will give you 2 centers. Just using a pair of scissors. You obviously need to have nice sharp scissors to cut through the thread. All right. And then ultimately the stamens need to be 2 inches long. 2 centimeters long, all right, which is about 3/4 of an inch. Okay, so that's going to be the length. So what we're going to do here is you're going to place them, all right? So you see from where the wire is to where the end of the stamen wants to be about 2 centimeters or 20 millimeters, okay? And that is actually about 3/4 of an inch. If you look at obviously the here to there is about 3/4 of an inch. Now, if your stamens are not quite long enough, what you can actually do is you can just pull gently from there because you've got excess thread there, okay? So you're going to now take your wire here. You're going to open up the wire. Not going to trim the wire off. We're going to open up the wire, and then we're going to cut this fairly short to close to just a couple of millimeters away from the wire, okay? But you need to have obviously a little bit there to hold it into place. So then you're going to just trim off the excess thread like so. Let's get rid of that. All right, so that is how you do the center. So just show you that again. So as I said, about 2 centimeters long. Of course, if you've gone around 4 fingers, you might have to trim them to make them the length you need them. And again, just going to open this up. So see, this would actually make 2 large flower centers. Just going to trim this up. You see, so that actually will make, so this is a really cool way to use the thread, and of course everybody has thread. It's very easy to get. I'm going to use this for the stamens. All right, so this would make 2 of the large stamens. Now when you make the small stamens, all right, it's basically exactly the same concept. The difference is we only go around 60 times. So you go around your finger 60 times, and then these ones here, as you can see, want to be about 13 millimeters, which is actually about half an inch. So just a little bit, as I said, about 13 millimeters long. Which is here, which is actually about half an inch long, okay? So you can work in inches or millimeters, whichever is easiest. So you can see this is just a little bit shorter. This is basically like half an inch in imperial, and this is 3/4 of an inch. And obviously this one is not quite as full because we're going to go around 60 times instead of 80 times. Now, when you have got these completed, I'm going to now show you the next step. So we're going to take our companion tool. All right, so we're going to take our companion tool here, and I'm going to open this up like a nest. So you see how I just open this up? So I just flick this out with my companion tool, and I'm just going to just push the companion tool into the middle here so that I know that there's enough. You almost stretch in the wire a little bit to make you sure you've got enough for the wire to go through the center, okay? So now what we're going to do, so this is a dry one. So obviously this is dried for a couple of hours, okay? And here it doesn't actually matter whether you use white or green wire, okay? On certain things it's important, but as I said here, with like the Poppy project, you could use white or green. I generally show it in the video in white because it's a little bit easier to see the contrast of the green tape and the white wire. But if you only have green wire, that will be fine. All right, so then what we're going to do is now we're going to thread this wire through the middle here. Now sometimes you'll maybe pull one or two of the little stamen threads through, so don't worry about those, just pull those away. And you're just going to pull this down, all right? You're going to pull this down, and you're going to actually pull that, and you see what will happen, it's going to sit in its nest, all right? So you see how it's really, really cool because it makes the stamens for the flower. Now there's many flowers are made like this, all right? So you can use this technique. And also I'm showing you a traditional like red, orangey red poppy, but if you were making, for example, like Icelandic poppies, they have a sort of a yellow center and yellow stamens. And then also like, for example, the California Icelandic, they're both the yellowy color. Some varieties of poppy have like a greeny color and then yellow stamens, like Himalayan and things. So you can of course change the thread color as well. So now what we do is you're just going to take those two wires, all right, which is the 30 gauge wire, and then we're going to take two more 22 gauge wires, because remember this was originally done on 22 gauge wire. So we take two more 22 gauge wires, and we're going to use half width floral tape. All right, and the half width floral tape will go right up against the base of the thread, okay? And we're going to use half width floral tape, just like we did before. And what I do is I sort of hold the tape, and I'm just going to go around with the tape, making sure that I just do secure where the little loop is going around, because we want that to obviously be covered, but plus also that's going to help to secure the thread. And you're going to tape down. Now, just like in some of my other classes, I've shown my Flower Pro classes, demonstrations, and videos. When you're doing flowers, by adding two extra wires, what it means, it makes a round stem. Because a poppy has a fairly thick stem. And then when you get to the end here, you can just sort of trim off, when you get to the end of the shorter wire, you can just trim that off when you basically get there. But just remember, I'm making these all on long length wires, but you can of course change that. Now, because these are now fairly secure, you can just sort of, don't tug too tightly, but you're just gonna go around here, all right, just to distribute the stamens around fairly evenly. Now, when you do the small one, all right, so the small one would be done exactly the same way, all right, and I have one actually here that is done. And you see how that is going to be done in exactly the same way. Now, the only difference is here, because the small one is a little daintier. When you tape the stamens, when you go around once you get the stamens in, you're actually going to use quarter width tape. So when you tape the two additional 24 gauge wires on, you're just going to just tape down with quarter width tape, which will be a little skinnier, okay? But that's sort of how you make the centers. Now, next step is going to be this is just a way that I found works best. Because thread is quite soft, okay, and so because when we put the glaze and the pollen on here, what I found works really well is you take once you get your center done, you're going to take some confectioner's glaze, all right. So confectioner's glaze is obviously a food grade shellac that I've shown in several of my projects. All right, and when you're doing this in craft, so if you were doing this in air drying clay, you can actually do what I'm doing here with glue. So you can just use a little bit of PVA glue. And you could even do that for sugar as well, you know, so you could take a little bit of like PVA school glue. But what I'm doing here is I'm just brushing around just the very base of this with the confectioner's glaze or a little bit of glue. And what that's going to do, it's going to sort of basically make the stamens like all stick together at the bottom, okay? Now, some of you might think, could you use a hot glue gun? Hot glue gun would just add too much bulk to it. But as I said, like a white school glue, or as I said, a little bit of confectioner's glaze, just base that around the very, very bottom. And then you leave this to dry, okay? So we're going to leave that to dry for a few minutes, all right? So about 10 minutes or so. Then once that's dry, we're going to move on to the next step. So I'm actually going to take a piece of parchment paper now. And I'm going to take... So you can use a piece of parchment paper, you could use wax paper, you could use a piece of aluminum foil. And what we're going to do here is we're going to take some confectioner's glaze, and I'm actually going to drizzle this onto the paper, or onto, as I said, the foil. So you just want like a little pool of this, okay? Now again, in craft, this could be done with, you could use nail polish, clear nail polish, or you could also use in craft, you could use glue, just watered down a little bit. And then what we're going to do here, I have here some black pollen, Now this is semolina, all right, so this is a commercial pollen. It's already colored. showed this in the tulips and things, but you can also take semolina, which is a sort of cream color, put it in a little bag and then add some black powder to it. Now in craft, again, you can use black sand, you could also use semolina, you can also get sort of very fine ground up beads and things. So what we're going to do here is got one here partially done here. There we go. So what you'd actually do here is going to use your little center part here. So you're going to take your pollen, all right? So you see how what we're going to do is going to create the pollen on here. So how you do this is you're just going to dip the ends of this. So you're actually just saturating the ends in the glaze like this, and then you're going to just sort of dip those into the pollen. So you see how what it's going to do is going to give you so you don't want it to be too saturated, all right? And I'm going to show you how you can obviously separate these as well. So you're just going to go, so you see how you're going to get this. So then you take your companion tool, and if you do have any sort of like clumping, just use your companion tool and just sort of separate them, just like almost like combing through them, and then that will give you the pollen. Now, but this one is obviously like a dry one. So you see, this one is the one I just put the glue on. You see how that falls down. All right, you see this one here, because the glaze has now dried around the bottom. You see how they're stiffer. So that's really what I wanted just to show you. You see how much easier that is, and because the glaze or the glue has hold those, then it means you're going to get really, as I said, a very nice center. So you're just going to go around the center. But you can use this for, as I said, anemones and all sorts of flowers. You see, this is how you make the poppy center. And then when you're doing the smaller one, all right, the smaller one will be done exactly the same way. Just got a little tiny bit on this to show you. Again, just going to put the pollen onto here, like so. And you see, this is sort of how we would make the poppy centers. It makes a very, very realistic center. And for flowers like anemones, you would use a black thread. And then the difference is when you make the anemones, you just follow my tutorial for my daisy on my ultimate sunflower and daisy and Gerber daisy mold. And you'd make like a center in green instead of yellow, pull that through the middle, and so you'd have like a daisy center, and then of course that has the black stamen. So there you have a center of an anemone. So there's many, many flowers that could be made in this technique. All right, so that is how we would make the center. And of course that's just going to dry, and then that will be ready for later on to use for the actual petals. So when I come back, I'm going to show you how we move on to the other buds, and then we're going to be moving on to the petals. So now we're going to move on to the poppy petals, all right? So we've made obviously the center, we're going to go on to the petals. But of course, because some of the components, like, I'm showing you, like when I come onto the buds and the dried seed heads, each of those has like parts to dry. So remember, it doesn't really matter in which order you make all of the components. Now for the petals, we're going to, as I said, going to make these in red paste, all right? So I'm going to use here some red flower modeling paste, all right? And remember, I've talked about formulas before, and if you look in the formulas in the book, in both volume 1 and volume 2, I talk about using 85 grams of flour modeling paste or gum paste, and then 15 grams of sugar paste or rolled fondant. So what I've done there is I've just taken 85 grams of red flour modeling paste or gum paste, and then 15 grams of red fondant or sugar paste, all right? Mix them together, because remember, when you add a little bit of that 15 grams of sugar paste or rolled fondant added to the 85 grams, it's going to slow down the drying process, so it gives you a little bit more working time. So things like the petals, it makes it a little bit easier. Now, when you make poppies, all right, you can do these just in a straight red, all right? So this would be like the sort of the Renshaw red, or you can also take just a little bit of orange. You see, this one is a little bit more orangey, because like English, like field poppies, wild poppies have a little bit more of an orange tinge to them. So what you could basically do is you could take the red color, and which I have here, and then you see this one, I've just added a little bit of orange to that. So you just add some orange paste color. So it's a little bit more of like a tomato color. And as I said, that's an option, obviously, if you want to. So you just add a little bit of orange to that. The other thing you could do is you could use red flour modeling paste, and then you could use 15 grams of orange sugar paste or gold fondant, and that would give you a sort of an orangey red, okay? But as I said, so whichever way you want to do that. Now, when we make the petals of the poppy, the cavity has got three cavities on there, all right? For the small petals here, These small petals are made on a 28 gauge wire, okay? And also the medium ones are on a 28, and then the larger ones on a 26. So when we do use the wires, we're actually going to just cut the wires into quarters because we don't need the wires to be too long on these. So you're just gonna cut this to quarter length. And these are white wires, and I would recommend you use white wire for the petals because even though we're using red paste, if you use green wire is obviously going to be more noticeable. So most of the time for petals I use white. All right, now we're going to take paste. All right, so this one I'm actually going to show you just in a regular red. All right, and this is going to be actually a number 7 small. So that means this just goes through the number 7 hole. All right, so you say it just goes through. And then what you would of course would do if you're going to make 4 petals, you just would make another 3 balls of paste the same size and just put those underneath a little pot. Now this is going to make a small field poppy, but also this is the size I would use for the California poppy. So obviously I live in Atlanta, so obviously each state, just like in many countries, has a state flower, and California's state flower is the California poppy. And this comes in an orange and yellow. This is also a popular poppy here in the UK as well to grow in your garden. But as I said, it's a very nice cheerful flower, and so of course you could start off with yellow paste or orange paste. We're going to just condition this, so I'm just going to just condition this with a little tiny bit of vegetable shortening, vegetable fat. I'm just going to roll that into a little, almost like a little bean shape, like this. I'm going to take the mold. Now again, like I showed on some of my other shallow molds, going to take a little tiny bit of vegetable shortening, vegetable fat. I'm just going to put that onto the inside of the mold. Now I'm just going to take my little bean, all right, which is going to be approximately about the sort of the width of the bottom of here. I'm just going to just press this in with my finger. So I'm actually just pressing that about halfway up the petal, you see, with my finger, okay? Then what I'm going to do is now I'm going to take my cosmetic sponge, which has a lot of you have watched a lot of my different videos. What this enables us to do is to get then this nice thinness on the edge of the petal, you see? So it's a little thicker here and then thinner here. Now then we're going to use, now again on some of my bigger projects, I would use my finger to create a slight ridge. I found the easiest way to do that on this is to actually use your companion tool. So just with your companion tool, you're just going to go like this and like this. So you see how you create like a little ridge here, which is about half the depth of the petal. We're going to dip the wire into egg white. So I've just got some egg white here. I'm just going to just dip this in, or you can use, some people use edible glue as well. And then just like in all my projects, we have the little sort of channel here. Just going to push this into the little channel, and this makes it really, really easy to get this in. It's going to go about halfway into the petal. Now this veiner, all right, this veiner is used with my ultimate sunflower and daisy mold. So if you have my ultimate sunflower and daisy mold, this comes with that mold, all right? But here I'm actually using this for the back of the petal. We also do sell this separately. It's a fan veiner, and we use this also for other projects. Like for example, you can use this for butterfly wings and other things, not just flowers. But anyway, so this is sold separately, or if you have the sunflower and daisy mold set, you'll have this as part of that. So what I'm going to do here is just going to line this up, and you see how I'm just going to line this up with the point. I'm just going to press this onto the top, just around that area there. So you see how it's going to give you the beautiful veining onto here. All right, you're going to just flex the mold. Just going to take this out of the mold, so you see how you're going to have this sort of fabulous veining onto here. And remember, with the vegetable shortening, it's just a little fat, a little tiny bit. Now, this is the back of the petal. This is obviously the front where it's heavier. Now I'm going to use my companion tool. All right, now the companion tool is wonderful. It has, and this is beautiful for what I'm going to do here. So what I'm going to do is going to bring it towards the edge of my pad. All right, and I'm going to use this I'm going to be fairly far down. So I'm going to get flexibility here with it. And you see what I'm doing here is I'm rolling, but you see how I'm actually rolling with my stick at an angle here. And so that means it doesn't actually take the veining off, but you see how you're going to get this beautiful softening on the edge. Because in traditional flower making, we would typically take like a balling tool like this, and we would go around the edge, but you actually will then lose your veining on the edge. Here you still see we have the veining right to the edge, but as I said, I'm just doing this, and just so you're really just going to do the top 2/3 of this. You're going to come around here like this. All right, so you're going to get this beautiful frilling, and you can actually pleat the petals, so you can actually just go underneath with your little stick here and do like little pleats on here, so you're going to get the shape. And we turn this over to the front side, just bring it off the edge of your pad, and I'm going to then just hollow that around the base of the companion tool, just to give a little bit of hollow. Now, in making poppies, all right, there are two techniques you can use. One is to use a foil former. So if you've watched my sunflower, Gerber daisy, and daisy, each of those was dried in a foil former. All right. So what I have here is I have a piece of foil about 9 centimeters. All right, so 9 centimeters, so about 3.5 inches square, okay? And then what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna take half of a styrene ball. So this is basically like a this is a 1.25 inch or about a 30 millimeter size ball, okay? So what I would do there is I would then form the foil over the top of here like so. And then what I do is I just sort of open it out just a little bit, all right? Because you don't want it to make it too cupped, but you're gonna get then that sort of shallow cup there. So just put it over the top of the ball and just open it out a little bit. And then what we do here is you're gonna make a hole through the bottom of that with your companion tool. Okay, so you're gonna make a hole through the bottom. And see, then that will sit on top of a cup. So it sits on top of a cup like I did the daisy. You see, so you've got this little former. Now, so if you're gonna dry your flowers like that, this is a larger one, which I'll talk about in a moment. But you see, like for example, when you're doing Icelandic poppies are more cupped. So generally, certain varieties I dry like this, all right? The English field poppy or wild poppy, I typically dry in a crepe foam former, and I'll show you the difference in a second. But so what you do then, if you're gonna dry your petals like this, you take your flat petal, all right? You turn it upside down. Just use a little bit of cornstarch. You hold where the wire is, and you're just going to bend the wire over your thumb. So you're actually, what you're doing is you're curling the petal this way, all right? And then you can take you take a pair of tweezers, and with a pair of tweezers, you hold it, and you just push the wire down on itself like that. The wire is going to sit at a right angle, you see? And then what you do is you just support this, and you just would pop that into the former like so. And you see these ones are dry, but you'll get the idea. And then you would just continue with the second one here. And then the third one would go here. And then the fourth one would go here. You see, so each of these, so you see the wire is bent at a right angle, but you see how you actually almost like curve in the wire slightly. So it will actually give you the characteristic shape, okay? And you see you just put your 4 petals in there to dry. And you see then, like for example, for a California poppy in yellow or orange, that is how you basically are going to form the petals, all right? So that's, as I said, how you would do the poppies. Now, the other option is if you're going to do field poppies, I'm just going to pop this one in here. And you can make the hole big enough to get obviously all the 4 wires into there, but you just generally, so when you make this, you put 2 petals in first. And you see what it will actually do, it means that the petals are going to be custom, almost like custom shaped, you see? So then when you have got, once this is dry, when you reassemble this, it's going to be a perfect shape, all right? So it's a really neat way to create that effect. Now, if you were going to do this for like a field poppy, like an English field poppy, you don't actually have to do anything to this other than hollow the base. You don't have to bend the wire. You're just going to hollow the base, all right, and you're just going to leave the wire straight, you don't bend it. And then what you would then do is you take like a crepe foam former like this, and you would just dry this into a crepe foam former like this. And you see this will then just dry the poppy petals. So they're going to dry in a sort of not quite so cupped, because English wild field poppies are more open, all right, than for example some of the other varieties of poppies. And you can also, of course, do this technique for other types of poppy as well, but the foil former works very, very well. So because we're talking about lots of different varieties of poppy, you can do this in different ways. Now, when you do the medium size one, all right, you would repeat the process, all right, you'd use a number 8 small size. So you'd use a number 8 small size for the medium, all right, and that's going to be done exactly the same way. All right, so just a number 8, it just goes through the hole, all right, so you just want to measure it so it just fits through the hole. Here we go, this would be number 8 small. And again, you'd make 4 of those, and then that would be done in exactly the same way, and that would go onto here into the former, all right, or obviously into the foil former as well, which will be the bigger one I'm going to show you. And I'm going to show you now the large one, all right, so you'll have an idea about how the field poppy is done. So that is going to be number 9 small, so number 9, it just goes through the hole. And then these will go onto a stronger wire. All right, so you can use this is a 26 gauge wire for the bigger petals, okay? But the medium ones, you could do 28 or 26, but the small ones definitely 28, the large ones definitely 26, because there's quite a difference in the size and scale of the petals. All right, so we're going to use exactly the same technique. So again, here I'm going to take, so this is the more like slightly more tomatoey color. This is the orangey red color. So I'm going to do this like the English field poppy. So when we think of like Remembrance Day poppies, Poppy Day, this is more the color they are. So going to again put a little bit, and again just a little tiny bit of very, very small amount of vegetable fat shortening onto your mold. Going to put this in to the mold here like so. So you see how I'm going to just press this in with my finger. So this is just going to be pressed on the bottom half of the mold, you see? So then we're going to take your cosmetic sponge and just start stretching this up. All right, just really stretch this down as well. But this is what's going to give your, because a lot of people when they look at My Flower Pro, they can't believe they're really basically made in a mold, because in traditional method of using cutters, you know, you can get, but it means that the edge of the paste you want to get nice and thin. That's why I like the cosmetic sponge. You can also see the difference between this and, for example, a poppy cutter. When you buy a poppy cutter, it's just going to have a smooth edge. This has almost got like a slightly irregular edge, which actually helps to give your flower a more natural look. Because even if you're using a poppy cutter and then you're using a poppy veiner, you're still not going to get that sort of shape to your petals. So again, we're going to take now the little companion tool. Now this one, you could do this with your fingers, all right? So you can actually build, you know, but usually as I said, I found that on the poppy, this works really well just to use your little companion tool to like make your little ridge. So this is obviously our wire here. I'm going to put that into my egg white. I'm going to push this into the ridge here. So this is actually going in about halfway into the paste, okay? And then we're going to take your back veiner. All right, so this is the fan veiner here. Just going to pop that onto the back. So here you're just lining up with the point where the wire is. Obviously on some of the back veiners we have the little V shape on there, but because we use this for the Gerber daisy and things, we didn't want to put the V shape on there because it would obviously be wouldn't be right for the petals. All right, so you see how you're going to create that, okay? And then you're just going to just take this out, just carefully out. Now you'll see how you're going to get a little bit of a shine on there, but that will just dissipate, you know, once obviously it dries. These ones I actually made yesterday, so you see they're no longer shiny. I mean, it just will disappear when you take it, but just a very, very thin smear of the shortening. So then we're going to take this, and on the back of this, so remember, you're going to take your little companion tool. So you see how your companion tool is going to be held at an angle, and you're working on the edge of the pad here. And then you're just going to use this quite fluid, all right? So you see how I'm using my stick down, and you see how, because the stick is very flexible, this is a wonderful tool for flower making, but you're going to get this beautiful softness on the edge of your petal. So you see, you just roll this and lift this. So it's technique-wise similar to like how when we do a garret frill, but and then again, you see how you can actually pleat your petals. So you can actually close them up. You see how you can actually make the nice pleats on the edge of them. So that's done on the back of the petal, and then you turn this over to the front, and then we're just going to hollow the base of the petal there. If your wire should be visible, you can just press that in with your little companion tool. Just sometimes the wire will be a little bit visible on the end, but you can just run over that with your little tool. All right, when you dust it, you won't even notice it. Now, when we do the larger one here, what we would do there is you just would use a bigger piece of foil. All right, so this is about a 14 centimeter piece. All right, so about 5.5 inches. And then here I'm using a larger, so this is a 75 millimeter ball, which is a 3-inch styrofoam ball, half of this. This is like the size you use for the sunflower. Again, you see, you just would go over the top of that. You'd open it up, and on this one, what you do is you make a hole and then go in with like a paintbrush or something like that, just to make the hole a little bit bigger. Because when you do the larger poppy, you need to get 4 thicker wires into there. And you see, this would then go like this. And then when you do these petals, they would be, again, just bend the petal like that, bend it at the right angle, and see, then they would just sit into there like so, you see? And so if you were doing like a large oriental style poppy, all right, you would generally make it like this, and you see how the petals would then dry, the 4 petals would dry into the former like so. So that's just obviously a larger scale. Now again, on the English style field poppy, all right, when you do this, so what we actually do there is you're just going to take these and you're just going to dry those onto crepe foam, and you see the crepe foam will give you this sort of perfect petal, all right, and you get this lovely shape there. So you just dry these onto the crepe foam. And so now remember, a poppy has 4 petals, so all varieties of poppy have 4 petals. So obviously you can, as I said, make 4 small, 4 medium, 4 large per poppy. And as I explained, some poppies would have, for example, like 2 medium petals. That medium petal would go obviously in first, and then you'd have larger petals on the outside, you know. So some varieties of poppy are a little bit more, slightly more oval shape, all right? So depending which variety you decide to make would be dependent on that. What I'm showing you are just 4 of the same size on each of the poppies. So these poppy petals now need to dry, along with obviously your buds and other things. So I'm going to, next part of this video, when you come back, I'm going to show you how to make the tight buds and then move on to the full buds, which are the slightly more open buds.